So it's been a few months since I have quit my teaching job and I've moved on to YouTube full time, and some people are asking, so Stuart, you have very few subscribers. How are you managing to make enough money to support yourselves? And one of the things that I do is that my wife and I go to conventions and we sell our various products and handmade plushies and things and stuff like that, including posters and other things that you can see right here. You can see them on loadingcrewcrafts.com. Ding! There's lots of different avenues in which I make just enough money, in order to get us by, in order to start paying off some debts, etc., etc. And one of the things that I do is I do GM for hires on my Discord server. Now, if you don't know, a GM for hire is basically where I offer my services as a game master or a dungeon master, and people respond and they pay me to guide them through campaigns. Now, I've been doing it for a couple years now, and I just kind of do it once in a while. I don't make it a regular thing yet until recently. Since now I'm technically unemployed, I do it much more often, about once or twice a month, and I think I figured out a pretty good method in order to set it up so that we can have a rotating cast of characters and we're not completely committed to the same party every time. One of the things I've noticed about GM for hires is that, yeah, you might get 4 people coming in one time, and then maybe next month, like, not all the 4 of the same people can come in, and so we have to do a different adventure because, well, a campaign should have the same 4 party members in it. The big workaround that I've done with that is that I have created a city for my players to inhabit, and I've got a lot of factions and various other things in order to set up for it. In fact, this background right here is the city that they're staying in. It's called Argus. Argus is a high gnome city set in my custom Pathfinder world. And in this particular world, Argus is considered the biggest city ever. Now, I say biggest with a sense of air quote biggest, and biggest meaning it is the tallest. It is kind of a mix between like Magitech, steampunk, and like a little bit of modern elements, in the sense that high gnomes build their city very, very tall. And there are different tiers to this city, and on the different tiers, there's different like levels of society. On the bottom floor, it's called the Dirt Belt, and this is where the poorest people live. Typically immigrants or people who can't like find work or anything, they live down here. And then the first 2 tiers is where a lot of the crime in lower parts of the city happen. 3rd tier is called Azure Lane. This is where the middle management types can afford to live. And then finally, the 4th tier, this is like the rich and the elite. And then the 5th tier called the Gold Roads, and that's where like the 1% live. Now, since I have a big city, it makes sense if once in a while players can't quite make it the entire time in and out. Now, I've got lots of factions in it, I've got some crime families, I've got the police force, I've got various companies, I've got various individuals, schools of magic, etc. There's lots of different layers to this, and I let my players pretty much use the whole thing as a giant sandbox. Several of the players have started businesses, several have aligned themselves with some of the magic schools, some have aligned themselves with important NPC, and one player in particular has accidentally made himself a small minor lord. And that's kind of what today's story is about. This is about the Swamp Lord. Now, this particular character, his name is Murgle Gurgle. He didn't really have a character. He kind of looks like Groot, and that's kind of what he's kind of set himself up to be. He is a kineticist who lives in a swamp that's adjacent to the city. Now, I told my players that this city is like filled with pollution, in the sense that like the Magitech factories are always pouring out stuff, and rather than the smog kind of floating up into the atmosphere, it stays to like the lower floors due to some like magic doohickey. And so this particular player has decided that, well, I mean, I guess there's some kind of radiation, maybe it's like polluting the swamp, and I said, sure, why not? So he is a swamp thing from the swamp, and his goal in life is just to get people to stop dumping shit on his land. So he always carries around a vat of toxic waste, and whenever he comes across a big business that he knows is polluting, he just dumps that shit on their desk. He doesn't necessarily realize that what he's dumped is harmful or awful. He's just kind of saying, hey, don't dump your shit here.
What are you doing in my swamp?
And this has become a very entertaining part of our campaign, because after he started doing this for a few sessions, he does this once in a while, people have started to take notice, including one of the crime families, the Lawful Evil family, that has a lot of powerful lawyers on their side. They have since then approached Murgle, and they have offered him to align themselves with him so that they could, preserve the land that is the swamp. And when he agreed to do this, he's essentially established himself as his own little faction in the swamp, and it's now become like a safe haven for all of these like various put upon people, including some Warforged, including some, I don't remember what they're called, like the frog people. And now he's added swamp hags and will-o-wisps to his like little land. The first thing that he did is he's aligned himself with a swamp hag, and he's given her like this shop that where she can experiment and sell her potions and stuff. And so now he's collecting taxes from the swamp witch. The latest session we did is I wanted them to do like some magical doohickey again, and they approached the swamp hag and they said, hey, we need you to scry for us. And she came up like, this was all like really improv, and then she came up with a quest for them, and she said, okay, I need you to go like kill some will-o-wisps, and I want you to take their essence and bring it to me, and I can cast a spell that'll do a thing. They all agreed, okay, we'll do that. But then Murgle Gurgle, now Swamp Lord, has thought of a better idea. He was like, well, I don't want to kill the denizens of my land. These creatures in the swamp are now my responsibility, and I would rather not kill the will-o-wisps. Now, if you don't know, will-o-wisps are aberration-type creatures that feed on fear and are basically like really nasty monsters. But, being the Swamp Lord, he has decided that it would be more productive to bring them into his land and figure out a way for them to live peacefully, because he'd rather them not die. So what he has done now is he started another business in his swamp that is essentially a haunted house. People come in, they pay to get scared, that feeds the will-o-wisp. The will-o-wisp in turn work for free inside the haunted house to scare people, and so on and so forth. So now this guy who's just wanted to be left alone the entire time now has land, a title, and 2 businesses and many important NPC on his side.
Shrek owns his own land.
Oh, yes. It's in an enchanted forest, abundant in squirrels and cute little duckies and...
What? I know you ain't talking about the swamp.
And that is some of the best role-playing I have really experienced in a long time. Some other players have really gotten some interesting things too. One player started a detective agency, and that's a really nice and convenient way in order to start bringing in quests for everybody. Another character has connections with the police force, and that's another way that they can start bringing in quests and stuff, and really interesting ways to tie all these stories together and have all the characters kind of align themselves together. Recently, another one of the characters started a shop on the 3rd floor, but he had connections with the like magic weapons manufacturer and one of the archmages in the city. In fact, 2 archmages now that I think about it. And one of them is now working in his shop. Another one is sponsoring his shop. There's lots of neat ways in order to like bring all these characters together. And essentially you just build a big sandbox for them. And that's a really good way to do GM for hires if you're ever looking for ways to do that. Now, if you want to join our particular campaign, you can go ahead and check the link in our Discord. You can meet me there, contact me. I'll invite you to the server and we can have a real good time. It's been a great lot of fun just building this sandbox. And once again, if your character needs to step out, we could just say that they're doing business in the city. Nothing like has to commit you to like every single session. You can stop in for a minute and then just leave your character as an NPC in town. It's no big deal. And with that, I'll go ahead and catch you guys next time. Be sure to check out our Pokemon D&D campaign. Be sure to check out the other D&D stories. If you really want some quick fire stories, we do have the Reddit videos and our D&D green text stories. Catch you next time.